Mridula Ramesh is one of our regulars at the Jaipur Literature Festival, talking about environment and environmental issues. And last year at this festival, she told me she was working on fiction. And she's come up with eco-fiction, climate fiction, also with a lot of myth and mystery in it. So let's give her a big clap.
Thank you very much, Namita. I'm delighted to welcome you all to this. Okay. There's apparently an AV that needs to play.
A planet on the brink. An ancient prophecy comes alive, held by a father who was never meant to be a hero. Following a pilgrimage where tradition collides with science. Hunted by a ruthless cabal who exploits climate disasters for profit as they search for an ancient force capable of saving the world or ripping it apart. Can Rajan save his daughter in a world tipping into chaos? Time is running out.
So congratulations, Mridula, on the launch of your new book, The Pralaya Prophecy. Now, your primary work has been climate change, and you've written two very acclaimed books that are non-fiction, The Climate Solution and Watershed. What made you move into fiction with this book?
This has been a journey long in the making. I started this book 12 years ago and then finished part of it, and then it just sat in cold storage. And Namita was one of the people who pushed it off the shelf by saying fiction can go to places that non-fiction never can. And the truth of the matter in climate change is we need everyone to act. And there is a sense that a lot of the non-fiction and the op-eds, etc., the world I occupy, there's a little bit of preaching to the choir, right? And we need everyone to act. My husband and I have two teenage kids. Any of you who have two teenage kids know the futility of preaching to them. So out of all these realities was born what I hope is a good old-fashioned thriller, right? Where the good guys try to outrun and outfox the bad guys. And oh, by the way, it's about the climate.
So while it is a work of fiction, it is as deeply researched, if not more, than your works of non-fiction. So could you tell us a bit about the kind of research that you did to write the Pralaya Prophecy?
Well, anyone who's read The Watershed, when you read this, you will see strands drawn from the watershed, right? So in non-fiction, you can't go too deeply into the stories behind the facts. Sometimes you do tell stories, but you know, when you say 400 people died in this flood, you can't go into the realities that they confronted before, during, after. You can't go through the heartbreak when, you know, someone loses a daughter. You can't go through the joy when you pull out a puppy from the, you know, the swirling brown waters. So what this has done is in the statistics and the research that has gone in to make climate solution and watershed, it has really infused the human element from it. So there are three aspects of researching the book. The first is the climate aspect, that's the most straightforward. The second is a side that a lot of people may not know about me, but I'm a temple buff, right? It's actually any place where faith resides. So it could be a temple, it could be a mosque, it could be a church, it could also be a forest, it could be a river, it could be the top of a mountain, all of these places. So when you see the protagonists, Rajan and Swati and all of them, going through landscapes, a lot of the action is set in temples. When you see them going through, these are temples I've walked through. There is a temple elephant that comes in this story. that's an elephant I have given the watermelon slice to. You know, there are landscapes that they drive to, there are landscapes they are chased in. You know, these are places I've walked in. So there is a lot of research that goes into that. There is one more element of research, and this was an area that was new to me, but I'll leave that for a little later in our conversation.
So which genre would you place this book in? Is it cli-fi, as in climate fiction, or is it a fantasy thriller?
Okay, so I was writing my climate fiction with a lot of trepidation. And you know, this is something that the one thing I really did not want was a preachy book. Because nobody is going to pick up a thriller which is preachy. And I hope when you read this, it doesn't have an element of preachiness. The people who have read it have told me there isn't. My daughter would have just thrown it away if it was preachy. So it's not cli-fi in that sense, because there is a lot of messaging in there, but hopefully it's not preachy. Then I was quietly sitting and writing this with a lot of trepidation. Then my daughter comes in one day and says, "Amma, why don't you put magic in it, Amma?" And with that one comment, completely upends the plot. So I said, you know, why not have magic? I'm a huge fantasy buff, huge sci-fi buff also. So I said, why not put magic in it? But I was very clear, I didn't want the wand. I didn't want the wand waving magic, etc. It had to be something that fit very organically into southern Tamil Nadu, which is where a lot of the action takes place. And when I was researching into what magic could come in southern Tamil Nadu, it was really the tradition of Siddhars. Many of you may have heard of them. There are supposed to be 18, but there are a lot, you know, hundreds, countless more following that tradition. It is, you know, it starts with Agastya and goes onwards. And as I went more and more into it, it really opened up worlds I never knew. So Siddhars are these spiritual adepts who along the way develop magical powers. It could be enormous energy. It could be a way to transmute something into something else. You can walk on water. You can change things. You can fly. You can create alchemical compounds. You know, it's all sorts of things. And I was talking to my father about this, and he said, you know, in that temple, there are Siddhars supposed to come at night, and they look like you and me. So who knows? There may be the person sitting next to you could be one of them. So it was really cool. I mean, and as I was going more and more, I was finding out all these connections on how they walked, where they're just interwoven in our life, and you know, it was very cool to get them into the story.
So there are magical beings in the book, and who knows, maybe
crowd,
amongst
yeah.
us in the crowd. But tell me, Mridula, so the story of a father and a daughter lies at the heart of this book, and it's also, we can say, it's beating heart. Do you want to say a bit about that very strong emotional story that's at the heart of the Pralaya prophecy?
Look, again, you know, there were several sessions in the festival this time which talked about what makes a good novel, right? There is the plot, there is the writing, but most importantly, who do you remember? You remember the characters. So these are, you know, the central figure in this book is Rajan, and he is an alcoholic priest, right? And suddenly he's caught, you know, he's just forced to come out of it. He's confronting a teenage, like a preteen, she's 12, he's responsible for her, and she doesn't like him very much because he's been absent her whole life, and he has to deal with that. He has to fight off his alcoholism. Then he finds out he's the sole custodian of a prophecy on which the fate of the world resides, okay? And he has to deal with that. Third, he has to deal with the fact that there is this evil elite confronting him, chasing him. You know, you saw in the trailer that there was a bomb, so that, you know, that's what gets them going. So how does he confront that? He is this man in early middle age, and he's acutely aware of his limitations. And in some sense, what gets him to rise above all this, it's not even the prophecy or the fate of the world. It's the fact that someone's out to kill his daughter. And he, wrestles with his limitations. He learns to trust other people. He finds out strengths he never knew he had. And it's at some level at the heart of this novel lies a coming of age story. And to me, it's a message, and it's one I hope I've delivered, that coming of age can happen at any age. It's not necessarily during the teenage.
Should we ask members of the audience if they have any questions at this point?
Sure.
Yes. This lady in the third row. Are there any mics around, please? Okay, I actually have a question for you while we're waiting for the mic. I mean, not to give away the plot, but you have this sense that there is this global elite that is engineering natural disasters to amass wealth. Does this have a ring of truth, or is it purely imaginary?
I think a lot of people have spoken about this, that, capitalism as it's developing has some serious problems in it. I think there is a lot of winner-take-all, I'm a believer in capitalism, but I think the lifeblood of capitalism is competition. And a lot of people are, reworking policy to just take away the competition and take away what makes capitalism such a powerful force, and then make it a powerful force on the other side. So when I talk about the elites in the book, there are elements of that, how some of the people are just playing against the rules. And this is something that speaks to things that you're seeing in finance, things that you're seeing in AI, things that you're seeing in other realms also. So, and I think it's up to all of us, and you see what happens in the story. And I've had a lot of people say they like the villains. But it's good to sort of understand what gives the villains their power and what we can do to also take away some of that power.
Did the microphone reach you? Could you please put up your hand again?
Hello, ma'am. Good evening. Nupur this side. I just want to ask a question. If someone want to start a novel, whether it's a fiction, fantasy, or thriller, so what should be the initial steps for starting that? Cause like if we started a story, the storyline switches off from the mind. So any of the points you can correlate with that? The initial new writer.
Okay. What happened to me is when I first came into Climate, I had a full arc of how I wanted the story to be. So I knew the points, etc. And I actually found, once I had that, and I think it's a truism, but you write about what you know. So I mean, the novel is set, it starts in southern Tamil Nadu, it plays a big role in Madurai, which is where I'm from. And so it revolves around the elements that I know of. And for me, it really came from my non-fiction world. So, if there is a flood in the book, the flood is something I've written from non-fiction. So I'm aware of it, I've seen it, I understand what goes on here. The elements of that, newspaper stories that you read, sort of fleshed out, fictionalized. This is a work of fiction, there's no doubt about it. But fictionalized is what makes the thing. But the arc came first, and that just came. So I don't know what else to say about that. But then the characters, at every scene, what would Rajan do, and what would Swati do, what would Lakshmi do? And once you develop them a little bit, you can sort of predict what they would do in any given situation. Like Lakshmi would never be soppy. No, she's never going to cow down and be sweet or anything. And Swati is never going to sort of she's, Swati is a pretty tough woman. She's not going to sort of say, oh, Rajan, I'll do whatever you want kind of thing. She's going to push him back at any stage. And there are one of my favorite characters in the book is Swati's helper called Thangam, right? So these are drawn with bits and pieces from people I know. And that's, that's sort of if you meet someone and they're quirky in some way, you want to put that little bit of quirkiness into one of the characters. So, I mean, it's your life in some ways massaged.
So while you were building the characters, did they actually become real to you?
Yeah, I mean, there were, like when the intense part of writing the conversation, writing the novel, I mean, some of them lived rent-free in my head. I mean, so like Rajan, and this is recorded, and there are people who are watching it. There are certain people in my life who don't like certain of the characters in the book, and I leave it at that.
Because they're
too
much like them.
I'm not going to go. No, they're not like them at all. But I will not say more than this. There are certain people in my life who don't like certain people in the book, and there was lobbying to get these people die like a terrible death.
Okay, before there are any spoilers, let's ask, yes, there is a lady in the front and the gentleman in the second row.
Thanks, Mridula, for going to the
Dark
non-fiction
side.
side, from the non-fiction to the dark side. You talk about Pralaya, which is, like a disaster. But as people in climate, we look for solutions, for hope. So Pralaya gives a negative connotation or a little bit of a scary theme. Is there hope that you see through this book of yours and also in general where you are in your climate investing?
Great question. Yes, so a lot of my investing in startups comes into this story. So there is one scene where a climate disaster is unfolding, right? And it's the kind of thing that could happen next year. So to tell you where this novel is placed, it's placed in the here and now. So it could happen now. And there is a climate disaster unfolding, right? And I'm just struggling because I've never written a thriller before and just don't know what to give away and what not to. But in this climate disaster, they are witnessing it, right? But the experience of the disaster is not even. There are several villages where the suffering is acute. It's really terrible, and when you read it, you'll see the kind of disaster and the kind of impact it has on the most vulnerable in our society. But there is one village where the suffering is not there, or it's very muted. And actually it's because the local political leaders have taken an interest and they come from there and they want to make a difference. They get the Krishi Vigyan, the government outreach person to come and help the farmers. There is a startup that works, making sure there is irrigation support and seed support and hand-holding and, taking the offtake. All the stuff that you see in climate solutions, it's played out in that. So the disaster impact in that particular village is muted. So is there hope? Of course there is. I mean, you see it in the work. When I invest, I see it in the kind of work that, so many people making a difference. You see, this is not fatalism. It's not going to happen. And, the prophecy says as much. And, we get deeper into the book on where the outs are. Right? So, yeah, it's absolutely a story of nuanced hope.
This gentleman here.
Mridula, has any filmmaker approached you for making film on this as yet? And if not, what would be the wish list you would have in terms of the way the film gets made?
Okay, all fingers and toes crossed. So none yet, but all fingers and toes crossed.
But it is a very cinematic story. I think that's also part of the question, is that how do you imagine?
Yeah, it was, see, let's be very honest. I think for me, one of the inspirations in writing this book was the Insider movie. because all of us knew what tobacco was doing to us, but I think there was a before and after the Insider movie was made. So, I mean, I hope this will, you know, it is written when you read it for film. The one thing that I don't want is running around trees. You know, I think I don't want the climate definitely to be diluted. I don't want some of the other elements which you read to be diluted as well. So yeah, like it can so easily go into sap. I'm just hoping it'll be a hard-hitting movie.
Are there any other questions?
Okay.
Okay, so I have a last question, Mridula, if you're up for it. We have a couple of minutes.
Okay.
I just want to know, so you've talked about Pralaya, but why this particular title?
Okay, so Pralaya actually is about dissolution. It's the end of the age and the beginning of the next. And in Pralaya, there is I was amazed when I went into the Siddhar tradition. It's actually there. It says, and I'm giving a little bit of the plot away, but that's okay. When there is imbalance in the body and imbalance in the mind, it gets represented as imbalance in the world, right? So the Tamil thing is, you know, andamum pindamum ondrum ariyum pode. You have to look at the body and the mind, you know, as the same, because andathil undade pindam, pindathil undade andam, andamum pindamum onnum ariyum pode. So at some level, correcting the imbalance in the world has to begin in correcting the imbalance within our own minds, okay? And the book sort of takes, that's a central theme in the book. So, and it works through the prism of prophecy.
Okay, there you go. So now you know what an exciting read this is going to be. So please get copies. They're available, and Mridula is here to sign them for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.